Okay. We'll make it work.
Yes.
So this is Hex-Files, and I'm Josh.
And I'm Tamara.
And we are doing, I guess this is our last episode of 2020. So you're welcome.
And thank God that shit's over.
Right. I have good feelings about 2021. It's going to be the same. Um,
Yeah.
but so what we're going to do is we're going to take a little bit of a break um, from we're posting, but we're not going to take a break from recording. And we got a lot of guests coming up, and we're going to be like doing some crossovers with some podcasts. Hopefully, Nightgeist will be early January. That can be out. We're going to talk to some other podcasts.
Super special.
Super special. We won't give their names away yet, just in case it gets delayed. But I mean, we'll do it. God, we're gonna be so awful and so nervous.
Yeah.
More nervous than meeting Bigfoot.
Yeah, probably so.
Yeah. But we love them, and we've got some other people we're trying to get on. I don't know when these will come out, but what we're doing this Friday. Wait, no. Let's do a timeline. What we're doing this Friday is if you're a 5 and up patron on Patreon, we're doing a live SD's session with our spirit box with our haunted doll Betty, quotation marks. That's the name she's chosen, I guess.
But they've chosen.
But you, if you're a 5 and up patron, which there's still time to become one, you can hop on that live. It's going to be like through Patreon, but it's also going to be through YouTube. So we do have a YouTube channel, not like a YouTube channel, but go subscribe to that. And so if it redirects you, that way you can find it easy, but it'll let you live comment on the session and you can ask questions. We want your questions for Betty. We want to get more answers out of her. And we think with your help, we'll get some more.
Yes, and I can't wait to see what other people think to ask.
Yeah, that's the other thing is because like the more people you have, the more questions you're going to get. And the more outside of the box you might get. Question wise. So what I'll do is I'll post the audio from our spirit box with Betty that we talked about on our last episode so that you can hear it before that happens to kind of know what to expect or if it inspires you to have other ideas. We're going to put that on Patreon. I have not uploaded it yet, but I do have it. So maybe I'll do that when I upload this. So then the Saturday, we're going to probably still being quarantined inside of a haunted room. We picked a haunted room at a haunted hotel here in Charlotte.
Where we will be socially and emotionally distant.
Yes. So originally what was going to happen is there was going to be a paranormal investigation group. That's still going to happen at some point, but that's being postponed. A local group, we were going to go with them and our friends at Spooky Charlotte, who do a lot of like telling of the history and lore. We'll have them on. We'll get that done whenever it happens, but we're still keeping our room we booked. We just won't be doing it with anybody but ourselves and a ghost or two. But we did get to book a haunted room.
Super excited.
Yeah, this room I think is reported to have, some of the employees said there was always like voices or noises coming from that room even though nobody was checked, or somebody would call the front desk from that room and nobody was in there.
No.
So we're going to bring the Ouija board. We're going to bring the spirit box. We're going to have a good time. And then we'll talk about it sometime next year in the beginning. But we were going to make that, but then the holidays are coming up. We need a break. You guys are taking breaks. Honestly, not a lot of people tend to listen on the holidays as far as the downloads are concerned. This is our first holiday with Hex-Files, but
happy holidays, Hex-Files.
Yeah, you made it. Kind of.
Yeah. Look at you.
Right. Your quality's going down. It's because we're fucking tired. I'm drinking a gin and a tea.
And I'm drinking a tea and a rum.
Haha.
No, my drink is fucking bomb. It's so good.
Right. Well, if you guys haven't listened to Nightgeist, it's fucking hilarious.
Yeah, they are funny.
I am concerned about our well-being, all four of us, when we're together, because let's see, what is the premise of their show? Oh, they drink and talk about paranormal stuff.
What?
So they're kind of like already our cousins,
Yeah.
or we know them from church.
Our city cousins?
Our city cousins. They on the West Coast. But no, that'll be fun. And what we're hoping to do, I know this is going on about the stuff coming up, but you're going to want to be there because, like, you know, that's how you celebrate your holidays. But I think Amanda and Charisse are going to try to be on the live Estes session to put in comments and stuff too. They're the surrogates, the previous fosters.
The progenitor.
The progenitors. So that'll be fun. And then that Sunday, don't miss it because we'll be on, what's that fucking podcast called that dude does? Cursed. We'll be on Cursed is having a live Yule extravaganza. Gonna announce some of the guests that are popping up. And those, that's happening Sunday, the 20th before Yule.
I've heard they're kind of sketchy though. We should be careful.
Yeah. And don't let your guard down around them.
Yeah.
But what is it? It's 8 p.m. Eastern. He sent me all this information. It's 8 it's Sunday at 8 p.m. On Podbean. So download the Podbean app. It's like the Quarren stream that they did. It is a like live chat / call-in show. There's going to be guests. You can call in. I think he's down to answer. It's like Yule stories, ghost stories, but we'll be there out of pity. Because he doesn't have any friends, really.
No. Imaginary ones?
Yes. He's got a demon or something.
Yes.
But we'll be there. We'll show up for fun. But make sure to catch that. He's invited some cool people.
It's the neighborly thing to do.
It's not desperate at all. But yeah, we would never do anything live for attention.
They're kind of cute though.
Who?
Them.
Yeah. So with all that out of the way, I think that's all the updates you'll need by the end of the year. We'll still be on Instagram and we'll be posting shit on Patreon. So yeah, I think that's it. No, it's not it. Because
there's more.
Yes, wait, there's more. So we're doing an accidental. We got our contacts and our address books mixed up. We're gonna accidentally send 2 gifts to 2 different people. So each person will get 1 gift. Kirst is sending a tarot deck. That's really cool, and a guidebook.
It is a cool deck.
It's a very nice deck, and it's like extra big.
Yes.
If you have like big hands
or bad eyes.
Bad eyes. And then we're giving away
geriatric.
We're giving away our very own spirit box, but don't fret because I ordered a new one. I ordered the latest model. This one has been on us in a couple investigations. It's the one you've seen and heard be used at the swamp with Betty, so it might have some ghosts in it.
Got some stank on it.
Some stank on it. And we'll give you batteries. We'll give you the free speaker that comes with it. So yeah, and it comes with like a little pair of headphones, but you'll need better ones. But it's cool. So we're not giving away anything. If Patreon asks, it's not a giveaway. It's not a raffle. Why would we ever violate policies?
It's just a gift between friends.
But that accidentally went to the wrong person that is 5 and up on Patreon.
Oopsie.
Yeah. One, we're doing it that way because they're like $70, $80 gifts. I mean, gifts.
Yes, gifts.
But also because when you sign up for 5 and up, we get your address. So we can do whatever we want to with it. But we promise we'll send good things. So all you have to do is be a 5 and up patron and you're automatically entered to be an accident. The end. But there will also be.
You will be involved in an accident.
There's also ways to get like an extra bonus entry, like an addition to your already entry. We'll announce that during the Betty thing. So now you have to go. Now you have to hang out with us.
Yeah.
Live. But that's it. So what did we want to talk about for our last episode of 2020?
What a great time we had and all of our accomplishments.
Politics.
Ooh, my favorite.
Just kidding. We're actually going to talk about our trip to Medoc Mountain. Is it Medoc?
I
Is it
think
Medoc?
I think the way they say it is Medoc Mountain.
Medoc Mountain. Yes.
Medoc. You gotta
It-
say it real North Carolina.
yes. So if you're familiar, if you've been paying attention and listening to the episodes, we went to the Dismal Swamp.
Yes.
We
It was dismal.
Yeah, but it could have been more dismaler.
It was pretty dismal on my skin.
Yeah, that swamp poison ivy was no fucking joke.
I don't know. That shit was from a different planet.
I don't know what we caught out there. Swamp rashes.
The kiss of the swamp or something. I don't know.
Right. Oh, it was bad. I mean, 3 rounds of steroids. So, and I ain't never. I played in the woods my whole life. I've been rubbed up on by poison ivy before. I ain't never had no such thing.
I got scars.
Well, you know what? You have to pay for what you take.
That's true.
We didn't take anything.
Well, I picked up that one small bottle of swamp water.
Remember I touched that tick by mistake?
Ew.
That was enough payment for me.
You're not supposed to talk about the tick anymore.
Yeah, I always forget about it. But, so a quick rundown. We went to the swamp. We were going to go to the lake. The lake is supposed to be haunted. We get up there. And we were going to go to this like refuge area. Refuge is closed for hunting. It's weird, I know. And so we met up with a friend and fan. Went and checked out this like canal trail, which wasn't anything but a bike trail. So we met a dog named Doug.
Yeah.
And
He was bad.
he was sweet. And we met his owner, and we just happened to say like, oh, tomorrow we're gonna go by the lake. She's like, pretty sure the lake is closed for like dredging, or like they're redoing the canal there. So we're like, fuck, let's go to the national parks side of it in North Carolina. And we'd always planned on going to the Cryptid Museum because it's like on the way there, and we don't really head up through that area, so it seemed like the right idea to do. It's on the way, and never been there before. So we go to this park and we find that weird track, which, talking to a couple people, I feel like it's the people that are really going to get a restraining order on us one day because we talk about them so much is Greg and Dana. But it's not just them. There's a whole bunch of people tied with this, and I think it's not just them. They kind of brought like a more public eye to something that changed the way I view things. Is this like the synchronicities and the phenomena, which is like when you recognize it, it sees you back.
Yeah.
Or it wants you to recognize it, and it gives you these little things.
So playful.
Right. And I think it's like it's all tied into like maybe an awakening or like connection to something more. We'll talk about that later at some point, but we're led to this weird track, which there's only one, and like some people are like, well, that are familiar with it are like, that's certainly a weird track. I can't say it's Bigfoot. Somebody we talked to even said like, well, I know in that area there's like a wolf or dog man, and I've been stalked by something in the Dismal Swamp. So we're like, okay, well, that's cool. And we're like, let's ask the guy at the Crypto Paranormal Museum. He might know. And like I said, we got there and he was like, oh yeah, there's like all this Bigfoot activity right down the road. And, you know, it's like, he was showing us stuff. So at no point where did we ever stop and think like, it's like for tourism. Because he's showing us these prints, which of course he could fake, but he's showing us these interviews and we're like, oh, we got Sasquatch fever now.
Yeah.
And a bad rash.
Yes. Can't tell the difference.
So we're like, okay, we're going back there at some point. We're going to camp sometime, but it's too cold. So all these like circumstances led us to this point of finding this weird track and led us to that museum to bring it up. If we hadn't found a track, we'd have gone, and it was this weird coincidence like where he saw us. He wasn't even there. It was closed. He saw us pull up. He didn't have to stop, but he did. And he was like, hey, I can open it back up. I can open it up. So he could have just kept driving and we would have just left.
Yeah.
And we would have never known about this place. Till we went again. Maybe, who knows? But anyway, so we decided we would make a plan to go back. So we did. And we stopped by there on the way up. Well, when we first left, it was crazy because Clayton went with us. You probably heard him on the Cursed episode with the Familiars. And, you know, he watches the apartment. He watches the animals. So it's like, we'll take you on a trip.
Yeah.
Like, he's no stranger to it, but, you know.
He is strange.
Yes. So we're like, well, let's go. And, like, the minute we pull out of the apartment complex, like, shit gets real. Like, there's a car in front of us with a Bigfoot sticker. No other bumper stickers, by the way. Because usually I see these Sasquatch stickers, and they've got a couple others. Like, if you've got one, you usually have 2 or 3 or 8.
Right.
There was one, and it was right in front of us, and we were like, huh, okay. And so we stopped to get, like, supplies at Walgreens, and we're leaving, and we're like, okay, the Sasquatch thing, like, that's so crazy. And we're, like, joking about it being a synchronicity, and this car in front of us has a 333 in their license plate, which to us is like a...
Yeah, that's a very much pay attention kind of trail marker.
Yeah, and it's not even paranormal all the time.
No.
It's kind of like, well, you're doing good. You're doing good, sweetie.
Yeah.
And then while we're talking about that, you see a license plate beside us.
Oh, shit. And it was like FAE 6919. Sorry if that's your license plate. So sorry.
Oh my God, you just said it out loud. But find us. Are you Faye?
Yeah. Come set a spell.
And so then we're like, okay, we're doing a live on Instagram, which you can go see. We did that. And we're like, I was like, oh shit. I wonder if those balloons that I saw, the Mylar balloons, because when we went the day before, and I don't know if this is important, but we swapped days. We were going to go to see Bigfoot on Saturday, and then we were going to go find a tree for the apartment on Sunday in Boone. Then we found out it's supposed to rain all day on Saturday in that area, and that Boone was supposed to snow, and we're like, let's go Saturday and see some snow and get a tree. We saw a Mylar balloon going to Boone, but we never ended up in Boone. We ended up in Linville, where the Brown Mountain Lights are. And
we drive right past Wiseman's.
Yeah, and I have a picture of you with Table Rock in the background. It's very small, but so we saw the balloon, and it's kind of like, to us, it's just all connected. And you know, I'm sending stuff to Brett Manning, who's our hellier friend, and we're like, who talks to us? And we're like, oh my God, did you see these? Like, we saw these balloons. And, you know, I'm on the highway, I'm driving, I couldn't get the pictures, and you know, you're going 70 miles an hour. You're like, oh God, there it went.
No.
But so we were thinking, okay, we saw Mylar balloons when we went to the swamp. That was like a month ago almost at this point. We're not going to see them again. And I was like, no, they're too far in Virginia. We're not even going to go across the border this time. And there they fucking were. And even more like separated than they were. And there's definitely a bright like blue one in there. I don't know if it was a star. And our Hellier fans will know like blue stars and all these balloons and stuff. And they're not just latex balloons, they're Mylar balloons. When's the last time you saw Mylar balloons in a tree? In one weekend, twice. And I know those are ones we passed before, but why are they still there? They were on our route, and we took a different route to get there, and I thought they were sooner. I would have been more ready. I almost turned around.
You did. I encouraged it.
Yes.
I'm
so
always
we thought
down for shenanigans.
And then we kept seeing 333 on billboards, 444 on billboards, and then we saw
blows.
And we saw blink to blumps and
golden warps.
Yeah. And we saw them on the license plates and fucking bumper. It was insane. So the 333 matters to us, and it will matter to you later, in a way, because it showed up in a picture.
We'll make it matter.
So we're hyped. We're like, we're going to find Bigfoot now. Like, there's all these signs are telling us we're going to find Bigfoot, right? So we get to the museum, and he's there, and he was like, yeah, there's a group up there that camped. There's a guy that just, like, stopped by. He's going to go out there later. But that place was pretty empty when we got there. It's 20 minutes away from, like, the museum. And so we're like, okay, well, there's recent activity. Like, somebody had just had rocks thrown at them. And it was cold. So
very cold.
I need a straw so this doesn't make so much noise. But, so, which I was going to joke. I was like, you know, this was going to be like, we're going to talk about Mothman. We're going to talk about Bigfoot. And we're going to talk about, like, a trip here and there. But it's like, we're just telling you about our trips. So if you don't like to hear about our trips, like, I don't know what to tell you. Because it's just going to be more of this.
I'm still going to go on them.
It's basically what Hex-Files has become. But I do want to do a. You know, the other day I was like, I'm gonna do a crossover with Cursed if I can get a hold of that motherfucker.
Ugh.
Gross.
Gotten a little big for their britches, I'd say.
Yes. I was like, we need to do a crossover about Bigfoot too, and not just aliens or missing and stuff. So we're in a state park, and we're like, let's go missing. That'll come into play later too.
Oh God. Oh. We about did have vanished.
So if you want to hear that episode, it's on Cursed. It's called Vanished, and it's about missing people in national parks. But this was a state park.
Oh, maybe that's why it didn't work.
So we roll up, and we're like, no, he gives us a map. He was like, here's where you go. We already had that map from a month ago, which is why we forgot there was a map.
Oh, yeah.
Just remember that we don't look at a map at this point. Because he tells us, he goes, go up to between spot 23 and 24. There's a trail. You'll miss it if you don't know where it is. Into the woods. There's a ridge up there. That's where we got a FLIR hit of this humanoid-like creature, which that is a creepy looking FLIR. We don't have the access to this picture because it's not ours. But he showed us, and he's right. He was like, when you look at somebody through a FLIR, you see clothing, you see like the face and hands are hotter than the clothes are. This thing was all one. He had like the grayscale. He's got one of those like really expensive FLIR scopes.
Yeah.
So it can see further up the ridge than my FLIR could. But it was all uniform. It was shaped like a person, but it was like really tall. And he was like, I don't know if somebody was out here in 40-degree weather naked on the ridge in the middle of the woods.
A tall amorphous somebody?
Right. So there was ridge hits. That's where like those campsites around there are the ones who get rocks thrown at them. And that's what we know. We know that people get rocks thrown at them in the campground. People say they hear or see something come through their camps. Something messes with their tents at night. Yes, there are bears in that area. But again, I'm going to argue till the day I die, like, we know what a fucking bear looks like. Now, I'm not saying that's everybody, because some people will mistake it.
Yeah.
But you think these people that live around this park that see bears all the time, I mean, he just got bear tracks that he cast.
People that live around bears are aware of bears because bears are an actual threat, and you have to be cognizant of bears.
Everybody knows bears can stand up. They wear little red shirts. Like, we know this.
Right, they're really good at playing cymbals.
Oh, yeah.
Tink, tink, tink.
That's just a monkey.
Oh, I thought bears.
Bears do.
Some people don't know what bears do.
Right.
Not everybody's an expert on bears.
They're like, did you just prove your point? That you wouldn't know the difference between bear and a monkey? Well, I hate to break it to you, but Bigfoot is not a monkey. It's a woodland ape at worst. And at best, it's an interdimensional being that interacts with us from time to time. The end.
Spiritual entity that can materialize on our plane.
Yeah. Aliens. So there's a book that Greg recommended I read, and I'm going to it's Where the Footprints End, and it talks about Bigfoot being a ghost or something.
Love it.
Just fucking love it. So
well, Bigfoots can have ghosts. If people can have ghosts and animals can have ghosts, a Bigfoot can have a ghost.
Are we so self-absorbed that we think we're the only ghosts that can be ghosts?
Ugh.
We're terrible.
We are. I mean...
Well, so we're like, let's check out this ridge. We found this trail. And there's like maybe a couple RVs there, but there's really nobody camping at all because it's fucking freezing. And these sites are like, you know, they're just gravel sites with a fire pit and a picnic bench. So we're definitely going to camp there at some point.
So soon.
So we're walking through the trail. We get on the trail. We're so fucking hyped. We're excited. We're like, we know exactly where he said they've recently been spotted. He's like, go down this trail and take a left. It's called something loop. When somebody tells you something's called a loop, what does that mean? It makes a loop.
Yeah.
What was it called? Doesn't matter.
Ridge Trail Loop?
That's what we're calling it. The Ridge Trail Loop. I think it was like Birch Trail Loop or something like that. Birch Tree Loop or
Blue Trail Loop
Mhm.
Bridge.
So we take a left. We're walking down through here, and like we start hearing stuff in the woods. After we're like, we get out in there, and so I'm a witch. You wouldn't call yourself a witch,
No.
but you know, you're witch adjacent. You do witch things. So we're out there, and like what we always do is make it witchy. So, and like paranormal investigators, we're like, we're here to talk to whatever spirits are around, including Sasquatch, Bigfoot, whatever you want to be called, or whatever you are. We don't know if you're a spiritual being, a paranormal being, a physical being with, we don't know what you are, but we're here. We're in your territory. We mean you no harm. We just want to talk. We're not going to hurt you. We're not going to disturb anything. And we start hearing stuff immediately. I mean, it's dead quiet out there. It's pretty quiet for like the middle of the woods.
Yeah. Winter is a quiet time in the woods.
Yeah, and you realize, okay, well, it is December and it is getting colder. There's not really a lot of birds, occasional crows, occasional songbird. But it's just not alive with squirrels. I think we saw one squirrel out there. And it ran by so quick, I don't know what I saw. But so we're like, we hear the stuff on the ridge, and I'm like, I want to go up the ridge, but let's go down this trail a little bit longer. And we go down, there's a bridge, and there's like a little creek and stuff, like tiny little small creeks. And I was like, we brought some gifts and offerings. What all did we bring? We brought quartz.
And Granny Smith apples.
But the quartz was from like...
It was from Brown Mountain.
Brown Mountain. Right? Wasn't it?
That's where we stayed. Was it from...
When? No.
For my birthday?
No. It wasn't Brown Mountain, but it was nearby. Maybe it was.
Wilson's Creek is in Brown Mountain,
Okay.
I think.
Okay, well, our idea was, let's give something of ours that is from a spiritual place on the other side of the state.
Yeah.
And leave for them, like, exchanging gifts, kind of like, well, I'm going to give you a local, delicacy, and I'm going to send it to you because, that's how I think.
Yeah.
I'm not going to pick up a rock that's already there and hand it to them. Like, for all I know, it's like, that was my special rock already, motherfucker. I don't need it back.
Put it back.
Put it back. So we...
and we had coins and we had chocolate.
Right.
Coins.
We brought one chocolate coin.
Yeah.
So it was silver foil wrapped.
Yes.
And you had some nickels, and we found a dime, which is perfect for Clayton.
Yeah.
And apples. So, and a little bone.
Oh, yeah.
And the other thing was, we were like, we're going to leave these in certain spots. So we went up on the ridge, and we're like, let's hang out on the ridge. And there were so many bent trees, like, not normal. And I've been in the woods a bunch, and I've seen, trees grow weird. They can, like, things influence them, and they can bend in different ways. They can grow cool and look into shapes and stuff. But I can't say that I've ever seen so many bent and warped trees in almost a purposeful way in one small location than we did in that, 50-foot diameter of a ridge. I mean, there were trees that looked like, when this was a sapling, it had to have been like held in this position, and it got big and grew that way.
Yes.
These weren't breaks. However, we did see weird breaks, and you saw the weirdest break of them all.
It was a strange break. It was like completely folded back onto itself when it was green, and it was maybe like 3 inches across.
Yeah, it wasn't by any means a tiny thing.
No, but it was folded all the way flat back onto itself and continued to grow that way.
Yeah, it wasn't snapped. It wasn't splintered. It was rolled when it was soft.
Yeah.
And it was like you said, it looked squeezed.
Mm-hmm.
And then it didn't kill it. It kept growing and fused to itself.
Yes.
And there's pictures of that on our Instagram. I might post some of these that we talk about more on the updated post for this episode. So that one was weird. And we're on this ridge. I don't know how many people go up there, but there wasn't a lot of it doesn't look like there was a lot of human activity up there.
Because it was off the trail for sure.
Oh yeah, it was a climb. It took some work to get up there. And the ground's very Wow, thanks, Floki. The ground was kind of wet, but it wasn't muddy. There's a lot of clay there, so it doesn't sink in as much as you think it would unless it's like been soaked.
Yeah.
So
Plus all the leaf litter.
we're walking through leaf litter, and there's a little green moss covered stump. We leave an apple on it, and we just kind of sit there and try to communicate. And you and Clayton, I didn't hear him right away. So you tell the shit y'all were hearing.
So, like off in the distance, at first, you don't think that you're hearing something strange, but I was hearing like this repetitive kind of like whoop or a hoot or like
A whoop or a hoot?
yeah, like not high pitched, but a higher pitched sound, not like a bass like grovelly deep sound, but like a call, definitely a call. And we were in a different location. We were several hours from home, so to hear something that I didn't immediately recognize didn't really strike me as odd, but I couldn't place it. And I couldn't place it, and I couldn't place it. And rolling through the Rolodex of ideas in my mind, I never could really place it.
Well, it wasn't like we rolled up into like the Amazon rainforest and we've not heard those sounds before.
Yeah.
Like this is still North Carolina.
Yeah.
And you and Clayton described it as a moo, but we know that area not well, but we know because we drove past like where we were and it was nothing but woods. And it wasn't cows. I mean, I know what cows sound like.
Well, God, yeah. I didn't even know you were talking about the moo. I forgot about the moo. The moo was weird. The moo was very different from what I just described.
Well, we'll talk about that later. But in the beginning, wasn't it the moos that you and Clayton heard on top of the ridge? It was these low, like, ooh.
Yeah, like a kind of a grumbly
I say moo, but there was no M's.
no, like that's the closest thing that I can imagine. Like when you hear the sounds that cows make when they sound like a little irritated, when they sound like a little like frustrated, that's sort of what it was like, where it has like a change in timbre and pitch, and it's syllabic almost, but very like deep.
Because you both were hearing it and like looking at each other, and I was like, I don't hear it. And you were describing it, and I'm like, then I started recording. I was like, so we're hearing like sounds and rustling. Like you guys said, there's something that sounds like it's moving off in the woods. We couldn't see it, but when you're on this ridge, you get a pretty good viewpoint.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't really, even though all these trees are like losing leaves, like
They're dense.
you can't really see that far. And so I don't hear it. We're going on this ridge. We're taking pictures of these bent trees. Every little tree break, it's like, well, we're looking for fur or hair. Because it's like, okay, well, these broke, but some of them are broken in a way where it's like, the first thing I do is, okay, this is broken. What fell and broke it? What knocked it over? What did this? And sometimes these things were bent at almost a 90-degree angle with nothing around it. And I'm not saying that nature didn't cause it, but at the same time, when you start to add up these tiny little weird things, a 90-degree angle is not something you see in nature.
No.
So that stands out. And like I said, I grew up in the woods. I spent most of my childhood in the woods because I was a band. No, I'm kidding.
Fair boy.
Feral. But what I'm saying is, like, I've seen trees that are freshly broken from the wind, from a storm, from other tree fall, and you can usually piece together things.
They go in the same direction.
Yeah.
If it's a windstorm.
And one of the pictures, Brett was saying, like, this looks like it's almost woven. And so, we're taking pictures of all this shit, and we start walking down the ridge, and I start hearing those moos or those low oos that you guys heard, and I was like, oh shit, I hear it. And it was like, it would have had to have been so far off in the distance, and it just didn't sound like a cow. But that's the closest thing I could describe, like that idea of like these little,
yes.
yeah. And it was almost like, but like it was something trying to like communicate like on the down low with each other and not just us. And it made me think of Brown Mountain in a way that we all experienced something different. At times we'd see the same things, but you would see stuff that would just not, line up with like, I'm like, I don't see this. I don't fucking see it.
Yeah.
And so I think there's something to that where it's like something's getting your attention, and that'll come into play later. And I'm trying to get through this, like where people aren't hearing every little step we take through the woods. But this is about when you had that experience with the root ball,
Oh my gosh.
which sounds insane.
It
But
sounds insane, and I'm never one to shy away from sounding crazy.
no,
I don't.
that's why you're here.
I just take weird shit for what it is. I see strange things, I hear strange things. Strange things happen to me, and I don't really question it. But I've always had this fascination with the overturned trees and the root balls and the little crater that they make. And I've always liked to go and look at the underside of the trees and think about how long it's been since any of those rocks were on the surface and how far into the earth that the roots go, and just really kind of vibe out with the root ball and look for rocks that look like tiny teeth. And
I mean, I've done that as a kid. I don't really do it as much anymore. But yeah, it's like, because it's crazy because they make such a big hole.
yeah, it's like a door. It's like a, I don't know. It's something. It's something special
Like
about
an
a turned over
entrance?
tree. Yes. And I didn't really realize how far down into that hole I had gotten, and I played there for a while with the teeth and the roots, and it just looks like a little colony, like a castle, like, I don't know. Very like dollhouse-esque, I guess. And I was a little hungover and very tired that day, not gonna lie. And I was trying to climb out of the hole with no spring or step or bounce or pep left in my body. And
You were gonna die there.
yeah, I was done. Like, I was done. I was just gonna chill there for a while and play in the castle. Um, but I put one foot up and out of the hill and thought, okay, a big groan and a big try, and I'll just be up, and then a couple of more steps, and I'll be out of this hole. But it was like I was lifted. I was not using my muscles. I was not using any strength to get out of this hole, and I kind of had to catch my feet up under myself when I got to the top of it. And I just remember like feeling an odd feeling and like strangely quiet into myself, and I had to really think on that for a second because it sort of perplexed me. It really threw me off my center for a minute, like how my movements and my efforts did not match at all. I really felt lifted out of that hole.
And it fucked you up so much that you didn't even tell us about it till like 2 days later.
Yeah, I don't mind sounding crazy. I don't mind sounding like a weirdo, but like that took me a minute to process because it kind of shook me. Not like in.
Shooketh.
And I was shooketh. Like, no, I was actually sort of like. Shooketh.
Shooketh.
Yeah.
Well, we didn't know that was happening. Me and Clayton are still walking around. And you say you were in playing in this, but I don't even remember seeing you that long in that. Like, did you go into another realm?
It felt like I was there for a while. You guys had gone way up the trail ahead of me.
I don't even remember that. Because, like, I mean, in the back of my head, I'm like, if we're going missing, we're doing it together.
Right, and we weren't even on the trail, not to say trail, but you guys had explored on off farther away.
Right. So, there's a trail, and it's a loop. And
allegedly,
we went up the ridge and stayed on the ridge, and then we went down the other side of the ridge. And when I say ridge, like, I mean, it's walkable, but it's definitely an elevation, and you can see a good bit. And so we walked back down the other side of this ridge, which, we're like, you're worried about, and I'm like, the ridge is to our left, and it's there. I remember that as a marker, and I'm like, the creek's to our right. There's the ridge. And the trail's on the other side of the ridge. We'll climb up the ridge and go back to the trail when we're ready. Down there, and this is where it gets iffy, because you think you found a depression/print, and I can't rule out that I didn't make it and forget where I stepped. Because there's so much leaf litter. We're checking the mud around the creeks to look for, like, footprints, handprints. There weren't even a lot of deer prints, and you see those things everywhere.
Yeah.
There weren't a lot of raccoon prints. You see those around water. So I'm like, okay, I'm walking, trying to avoid where I'm looking for prints. on like game trails and like near the creek. So I'm not paying attention to where I'm walking because I'm looking for prints. I don't think I went that way, but I cannot 100% say that I didn't.
I don't know how you could have made that print.
That is true because I stood and tried to, and I could not make it that deep.
Yeah, it was very long. It was like an isosceles triangle, sort of, like maybe about a foot long.
And if you ask why we didn't cast it, was because it was a slight depression and we kept moving leaves out.
Yeah.
And
The ground was depressed underneath.
Right. The ground was depressed, but not in something that you could just probably, you could make a cast of it, but you wouldn't even see what we saw because there was like maybe a hill. You couldn't find any toes. I put my hand down, tried to find toes, prints. And it was like, it was so much leaf litter that they like, we could have cast it, but it wouldn't have looked like anything but a hole.
Yeah.
So we didn't. One day we're going to cast something, I swear to God. We even were going to, if we found a bear track, which they had found just days before, if we found a bear track, we found anything, we were going to try to cast it to get practice.
The thing that strikes me about what might have been a print is the way that it came into my notice. And I think that anybody who's a little bit like tuned in to the other or the strange notices when something catches their attention that would not have otherwise caught their attention. Like, you know that your head snapped around that way. For what reason? I don't know, but there's a skull. Or like, you know that you lost your balance, but for what reason? And you look down and there's a little lizard under your foot.
That was a newt. That was a red, like a red spotted newt. What do they call them? We'll tell you about that later. We don't have time.
Yeah.
But you almost accidentally stepped on a newt, which they can live to be like 13 years old.
Yeah.
It was in its like young stage, which means it has to live for like 4 years before it even becomes an adult. So this bright orange salamander newt thing is like 4 years old, and you almost stepped on it. This was not this time. This was in the mountains.
Yeah.
And you felt like you didn't even see it, and you felt like somebody pushed your leg off your foot up.
Yes,
And I said, "What the fuck is that? Did somebody drop a toy? Because it's so bright orange."
Yes.
And of course, you know, it's there, and like I was like, "Well, he's probably like, fuck you, don't step on me."
Yeah.
I ain't come this far.
I'm glad he had good shielding. I don't know. I'm very happy not to step on you.
So yeah, so you're used to things moving you.
Yeah.
So
see how I'm not scared to sound crazy at all?
So we walk down the ridge, we go down the creek, don't see much, and you find that thing all of a sudden, because we're looking for prints.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought you took a picture of it, but I guess not.
I forgot that I had my phone because I thought my phone was dead, so I thought I left it in the car.
So we fucked up there, but I just don't know. Like I said, it was a little bit bigger than my shoe would have been, but I don't know.
You would have had to have slid in that area to make a print even close to that, and that was not a slidable place. That was at the top of the ridge where it sort of flattened out.
Yeah.
But it wasn't far from all of the bent branches and the woven trees and the indescribable like air pressure and...
Well, okay. So with that being said, while we were down there looking at that print, because it was still kind of on the ridge, but it wasn't the high part of the ridge. It was down where that creek was. Where we were scooping around leaves and stuff.
Yeah.
God, you were hungover.
My chronology is bad too.
Well, we had crossed the creek, and that's when we had crossed it, and you were looking, and that's when we were looking at that thing. Not long after that, we start hearing voices, and we know they're human voices. And I'm like, look, there's like hikers out there, and it was like a man and his son. They might have been 30 feet from us before we saw them. Mm-hmm. And I was wearing bright orange because, you know, we're in the South and people hunt. Yeah. So I'm like, I'm going to wear like orange because that you can see that. And they had to have been like within 20 feet before they noticed us. And we started moving. And they were talking. We were not. And they were not trying to be quiet. And we barely heard them until they were right on top of us.
Yeah.
But we could see them and we weren't moving because we were watching them. We didn't want to freak them out. Start moving and then be like, what the fuck? So
that's bear.
Right. So we started moving and they saw us and we waved to them and everything. I was like, you know, if I didn't have the orange, if I would have taken my hat off, and never moved, I don't think they would have ever saw us.
Mm-mm.
And they were 20 feet from us. That's how dense that this fucking place is. And they were on the trail. We were in the woods. And that's, I think, when we came to the realization that, like, yeah, if you wanted to hide from something in here, it would not take much. Stop moving, duck behind some trees or a root ball.
Yeah.
You would never know anything was out there.
Nope.
I can't say that I ever got the feeling that I was being watched, but I did feel like, especially on top of that ridge, that there was something, that place belonged to something, or something used that place.
I agree with that completely.
And I don't even think it felt sacred per se. It just felt like, and I even said while we were up there, I was like, if you were trying to figure out what humans are doing, this is the place to go in this park, because you can see a good bit in distance.
Mm-hmm.
So we fuck around a little bit, and then I was like, well, let's get back on the trail and go back to where we were. And then we'll like maybe talk to that other camper. We'll see if they found anything, and then we'll hang out till dark and use the FLIR. So we're walking down the trail because the ridge is behind us to our left, and we're heading back towards our left. We're backtracking on the trail because I think it's a loop and it's just going to go around. Turns out it does not do that. That it actually goes up that ridge. And at some point we must have been up that ridge, and I was like, we're coming down and going to hang like a left and go back to the campsites. That never happened. So while we're up there, we see more tree breaks, and then we're walking. It's starting to get dim, get dusk, and we're like, okay, we got to find our way back. And that's when we started hearing calls, like howls and yells.
Yes.
And you guys, I think, started hearing it first. And I'm like, what? And you're like, you don't hear that. And I'm like, what? And you hear this, like, I'm going to try to do it without, like, fucking up the mic. But, like, what I heard, and I caught one of them, or a couple of them on the camera, or, yeah, you can hear that on Instagram. I'll repost those again with this video when we plug the episode. But it was like it was like, it was so far off in the distance.
Yeah.
And that sounded awful, but it wasn't like it was like you were describing, like when a dog barks or howls, you have that loud burst of sound that trails.
Mm-hmm.
This was like a build up and like a sustained, like, whoop or howl.
Mm-hmm.
And then it would, like, lower down. And then I'm like, yeah, I heard that. And I look around and you guys are looking at me, and you're like, there's one responding behind us,
Yes.
like miles away.
Yes.
And I'm like, what? And I'm like trying to listen, and you guys are like, part of the video you can see it, you guys are shocked.
Yeah.
Because you hear the same thing. And am I wrong by saying that had to have been miles away?
It was very far away.
If it's not, it couldn't have been less than a mile. Because it was, I mean, like I said, I've heard people yell. And if you're thinking, so the reason we didn't do a bunch of tree knocks, we did do some, and we heard some tree knocks
Mm-hmm.
on the ridge, but not like loud knocks. Like you said, like small knocks. And you're like,
Like you would like plink, plink, plink a hollow spot in a tree so that it would reverberate, you know?
to me, it seems like when we got on the ridge, it was almost like something was communicating with others in a very quiet manner. You could still hear it, but they're like, we're not going to be so obvious about it. Like if we were walking, you can't hear it, but if we're stopped, it's dead quiet. And those woods were dead quiet most of the time.
So quiet, so oddly quiet.
You can't hear traffic. And I'm like, well, there's campsites back there, but there's nobody really back there. And this came from way beyond the campsites.
Yeah.
This would have been like, and I mean,
It was in the opposite direction. The response, there was like a call and response, and the response was from the opposite direction of the campsites.
well, what you have to understand is this place is not isolated. There's roads out there.
Mm-hmm.
There's like pastures. I don't know if there's things on them. And there's houses and there's campsites. But the amount of sightings that happen up there. And so we're like, we haven't heard, like we're trying to get this call. And I've never called for a Bigfoot, but I did not want to. I was like, so there's people around here that know about Bigfoot and they're out here looking for Bigfoot. The last thing I want to do is respond to a call, them think I'm a Bigfoot, respond back, and then me think that's a response to mine, And then we're communicating with each other, and we both come out saying we talked to a Bigfoot.
And Bigfoot is just laughing.
He's like, y'all are so stupid. Y'all don't even sound like me.
This file can't hop between dimensions.
Right. But this was out, and other people I let listen to this said the same thing I did without even bringing it up. This is out of human range. Whatever did this had a gigantic lung capacity because like I said, I mean, I'm used to being out in the woods. I know what it's like to scream and holler for somebody when you're looking for somebody. We used to play like hide and seek in the woods at night when you're trying to get people home. Your mom and stuff would have to whistle because a human voice does not carry very far. Mm-mm. Why do you think there's emergency whistles and stuff when you're lost? So this was beyond the campgrounds, and this was like, I mean, if it had been closer, like in the video you hear me say like, it's almost like an owl, but you would not hear an owl that far off.
And it wasn't the right time for owls?
Well, dusk, but like I've heard a bunch of owls, and I'm making a point to try to identify owl calls, and I know what a barred owl sounds like. That would be the closest thing it was, but it wasn't. And when I listen back to the video, it sounds like the rhythm of a dog bark, but I personally did not hear that at the time, and you said you did.
Yeah.
And I didn't hear. I heard the like, and then you heard the response, and then in the video you can hear this like,
yes,
from a different direction. That almost sounded like the first whoop is like, say let's say north. The like other whoops and little calls were almost like east, northeast, and then what you guys heard was south behind you. And I'm like, okay, this is like, and I mean, people have seen groups up there. They've seen families of Bigfoot. They've found their tracks. Somebody has seen them walking through, like, we've seen pictures where people think there's masses in these woods and it's undecipherable. But
we have a weird picture that I think is weird.
I don't think it is, but like, I mean, I saw exactly what you saw. On the ridge, there's a video where it's like, I think it's just dark limbs and shit. But it looks like there might be something. But somebody, what was it? You were saying, I think it was you, not Clayton. Weren't you saying like, sometimes don't you think you see stuff and it shows itself as one thing, but then it's not? But you're also like, okay, that rock over there totally looked like a rabbit, and now it's a rock. But I saw a rabbit.
Yes.
And it's a rock now.
Yep.
So I'm just saying that those things exist, we think. And I don't know if they're tricksters or I don't know if you're seeing something. But there was a couple times where I swore I saw like a figure off in the distance move. And like, remember there was a couple times where I stood there for like 5 minutes, like looking through the woods. And you guys were like, what do you see? And I'm like, I don't even know how to tell you where to look. But there's this mass that's darker than everything around it. And I swore it just moved. And now it's standing still. And I couldn't tell you. I could walk up to it, but it would take me a long time. You
are so good at spotting stuff, though. Like, I think you have, like, a keen eye. Like, a real knack
for, my demon eyes.
Seeing stuff. Like, you saw that otter? You saw a fucking otter?
Also, we had a map, but we didn't look at it yet. So, later we might have to talk about, I don't think we have time on this. We're trying to keep it short, about your dream and a pine tree. But But you had some dream about a pine tree, and we thought we saw one pine tree at the time that was weird, and the light was hitting it like it was being like a spotlight. It was listing. And so we walk over there, and I'm like seeing these tree breaks, and I'm like, look at this. Am I thinking too much into this? Because at some point you're like, I know I'm having a biased filter on my observations because we're out here looking for Bigfoot because this is a hot spot of sightings. However, at the same time, some of it just doesn't add up. And we're seeing like Clayton pointed out some like fallen trees that were shaped like a triangle.
Yeah, but like an hourglass.
And an hourglass. Yeah. And I'm like, you know, Clayton, stuff falls like that. But yeah, you're right. That's oddly specific. And we're seeing shit.
I think Clayton sees stuff from a different point of view.
Because he's 6'6".
Yeah, he's very tall.
Right. And so he's seeing this hourglass probably in a much better formation than we are. And so, you know, we're looking at those, and around that supposed triangle, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute, I'm seeing these tree breaks. There's a 90-degree one, and you're like, it's not high enough. And I'm like, yeah, but who's even back here breaking limbs?
Yeah.
Like this isn't like the tiny little like branches. Clayton found a spot that looked like something heavy stepped on, broke it.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, look, this matches like my size shoe. And he has to special order shoes. And he was like, I wouldn't break this if I stood on it. And it was like smashed into the ground. It was like a limb that was broken. But there was no print around it. Didn't see a print, but we saw like the break. So we're doing all that. And we're walking down this trail. We hear those whoops and we hear those calls, which is like awe-inspiring and like amazing. But also you're like, it's getting dark. We're in the middle of nowhere. Really.
We've never been in this forest before.
And we're hearing these calls and I'm like, we heard coyotes in the Dismal Swamp. I heard coyotes growing up. I've heard bobcats growing up. That's fucking blood curdling.
Yeah.
That sounds like somebody being murdered. That's terrifying. I haven't heard a bear roar in real life or make noises, but I know that they, and like they said, it's a little bit too cold now. The bears are probably hunkered down.
Yeah.
And so this and that, and I'm like, I don't know. There's no wolves in this area. And we know what a dog sounds like. And we didn't hear any of this shit.
We didn't hear much of anything. Those woods were eerily silent.
And I'm like, don't you know, like, didn't you notice how quiet everything was when we heard those, like, screams, yells, whoops, whatever you want to call them? I mean, whatever made those was screaming. Mm-hmm. Like, that was a holler. They were hollering at each other.
Yeah.
And it never got closer than that. But I think it took us a minute and we're like, did we hear Bigfoots talking to each other, calling to each other? And then we're like, let's get back. And we start realizing like, we should have been back by now. We should have been back. And I was like, let's look at this map. It's getting fucking dark.
Dark.
And we realized that, so the loop that we're on is a loop, but it's a 3-mile loop. And we're not going back behind ourselves around the ridge. We were going out to like, if we were supposed to be heading back to our lefts, we were heading to our rights. And I was like, we're not lost. We're on a fucking trail. The trail markers match. We're somewhere on this map. However, it's not like a map. It's a hand-drawn, like, little clip it. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. It's not... So...
It's your stereotypical state park map.
So we're walking down, and we're walking, and it's getting darker, and we hear more of these whoops, and we're like, well, this is it. We're going to, like, come face-to-face with something in this dark. And we're like, are we going to end up missing? So we're walking, and it gets pitch black. And I'm like, I don't know where we are. Like, I know we're on this trail, but I don't know where on this trail we are. And I said, but a worst case scenario, we're only if we stay on the trail, at any given point, the furthest away can be 3 miles.
Right.
So.
I mean, it was 36 degrees, so we weren't going to freeze all the way.
Right. And we had food, we had water. And then we got far down to like where the creek gets almost a river. And you can hear it. And it stayed to our right. And I'm like, as long as this stays on our right, it looks like this trail leads right back. Then we start hearing a highway. So we get near a highway and I was like, well, we're not lost. We can walk. I mean, you could see car lights through there. Mm-hmm. But again, this is not where we heard the stuff. It was dead silent. I'm like, we didn't hear traffic up there.
No.
And so, but we had been walking a bit and it was dark. I got the headlamp on. You got the flashlights. I don't know if Clayton was freaking out. I'm a little bit freaking out because I'm like, here's why I was freaking out. Not because I didn't think we would never get back, but because I was like, we were on a schedule crunch because this was a 3 hour and 20-minute drive away. And only one of us had to work in the morning and it wasn't me.
Yes. And it was me.
You.
And I'm a bit of a beast if I have to work.
So we're walking and it's fucking dark. And I keep looking at this map. GPS kind of works and cuts in and out. There was no service really. And it shows us where our car is. And I'm like, oh, we're going to come right up on it. It keeps going past it. And I'm like, well, we're on the trail. There's a red circle. That's what the trail is marked. That's our loop. We're on our loop. And we keep seeing signs where it's like picnic shelter this way. And it said like loop this way. And I was like, I'm not going in a circle. Let's keep going to the picnic shelter. Mm-hmm. And we're like, damn. And it's really pretty out there. Like the big creek is going there.
Yeah.
I forget what the creek was called, but
Big fishing crate.
Big Fishing Creek, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, call it what it is. And I was like, we might come face to face with a Sasquatch out here.
Yeah.
But the calls we heard were not. I don't think the calls we heard were in the park. I think they were on the outskirts.
Yeah.
But that still lines up with sightings and stuff. So we finally start seeing like lights, and I was like, "There's a building up there. This must be the shelter." And all of a sudden, I see this thing dart through the woods, and I shine my light, and I was like, "That was a fucking deer." So we spent some time like seeing the eye shine,
Yeah.
trying to find it on FLIR, and the FLIR doesn't pick it up. And I was like, "Damn." But that FLIR does have an opportunity to work far away because I've practiced it around here. And almost at 100 feet, you could see warmth. You might not make it out. So we finally get to the shelter and we're trying to figure out where the fuck we are. We realize, oh, we're at the end of the state park road. We need to walk down like a mile to the campgrounds.
I know, so many miles with my hangover at this point.
Well, so we walk back in the dark and we're like, well, things are supposed to happen. Who knows? Like, we wanted to walk this loop anyway. We just did it in the dark. Who knows why we went out there? And I was like, maybe it's like Brown Mountain. The one time I went out there with Clayton, we got lost, but we felt like we experienced something. And then the next time we went out, it was insane. So I was like, this isn't something you just come out and expect to see something. I think we got some stuff.
Yes.
And it's not even the end of it. But, I think part of it is like that reoccurrence or like, it's like, okay, you guys came and you didn't fuck with anything.
Yeah.
You guys left gifts. You respected it. Like you got a little bit lost, but you didn't like violate anything. You tried to talk to us. Like if we come back, it's like, those things recognize that you were there before.
Right.
Whether it's earth spirits, whether it's Sasquatch, whatever. So it's at this point it's very cold. And we get back to the car and I'm like, let's just go back down to the trail one more time. And I said, because we want to leave the gifts and the offerings in the woods, not on the outskirts, but we want to take it down there. So we found a good spot. We walked, probably like 10 minutes in again. Mm-hmm. And we find the stump and we leave the apples. They say you should leave them in an interesting way. People have said they've had Bigfoots and stuff leave gifts and vice versa. Like they left me something, so I did this and I left them something. So anyway, we leave the apples, the coins, the chocolate coin, the bone, and then we sit there and kind of reflect, listen, and Clayton really wants to go back up on that ridge to see if that apple's gone. And while I do want to do that, I'm like, we just spent like an hour walking through the pitch black, dark, not knowing where we are. That was on a trail.
Right.
I don't want to go up this ridge and risk it because I can't even promise I know where we went in up the ridge. If it was daylight, I would have known. But at night, you can't see shit.
No.
So I was like, next time when we come up here and we camp, we'll pick spots where we'll leave it and we'll leave things out and we'll come back like the next night or next morning and see if it's moved or something's left. And do it in a way where it's like, okay, well, I know a raccoon might have taken this apple, but what like lined up the bones in this order?
Yes.
When we had it in a triangle, they've been moved into like a line. And that can happen with Bigfoot stuff and people report that. So anyway, that's all fine and good. We leave our stuff, we go back. Then we sit on the picnic bench freezing.
So cold.
And we do like I
haven't felt my hands in like an hour and a half at this point.
Yeah. Well, we do an SD session there. And we get some interesting stuff. If I can figure out a way to post it, because it was on like the camera video, even though it's pitch black, it wasn't like an audio thing. But we get some weird responses, like not with me, but when you put them in, we're like, hey, we left you some stuff. And you said snack. And we're like, yeah, yeah, we left you a snack. Like there's some apples, there's some coins, there's a chocolate coin, and it said real. And we're like, yeah, the coins are real. That one's not real. And Clayton's like, you have to peel the foil off to eat it. Don't eat the foil. And it said junk. And we're like, well, maybe that's like chocolate, or maybe it wanted real one. I don't know.
Maybe it was talking about the wrapper.
I was just thinking like junk food.
Oh, yeah.
Um,
I mean, it was a foil wrapper. It wasn't unnatural, just not very natural.
right. Foil, is natural, but it's been processed into whatever.
Yeah.
So, we thought, okay, well, we got some more responses. We'll have to like play it back and listen really close. The first thing it said when you were starting to put the headphones in, and I got confused because Clayton said, is it hard to communicate? And you said, it is. And I was like, yeah. And you said, no, I said, it is. And I was like, yeah, you're like, no, I'm saying I heard it is as soon as you said that before I even got the headphones in. And I was like, oh, shit. So that was our experience. And so we left. And we felt good. Like, I feel like we went out there and, like, did we catch a picture of one? No. Not that we saw.
All right.
Did we cast a print? No. We might have found something.
Yeah.
But then I'm like, we heard one and we caught it on recording. And then when we get back, I send it to a few people that, like, I send it to Heather, who's gone on investigation. She works with small town monsters. She said, that sounds like the Ohio Howler. And she also said, but those other things sound like Dogman.
Wow.
And I was like, what if there's a fucking Dogman out here? Because we're not that far from the swamp. We're about an hour and a half to 2 hours away from the Dismal Swamp.
Mm-hmm.
And to hear, I think it's Creep Geeks that I was talking to that said like, oh yeah, I've been stalked by something out there.
Oh.
That's another good podcast you should listen to. Monsteropolis is by the Small Town Monsters. Plug in them. Plug in Nightgeist. Plug in Creep Geeks. Like, there's some good podcasts out there. Why are you listening to us? You're not. Nobody is. But, I think... if you hear our whoops, whoop back. Whoop, whoop. But I think, like, since we're already past an hour and, it's a school night.
Yes.
I don't know. I mean, it feels like, I don't know, like how many people go out and hear, how many times have I gone out into the woods hoping to see or hear something weird that I can't explain? And I mean, we hike a bunch. I've camped a bunch. I used to grow up in like the middle of nowhere. And it's not the middle of nowhere, but there's not a lot around in North Carolina. It's near a state park. Just, I've never heard a call like that. I've never heard a scream or whatever, a howl like that. That was not human. It was not a coyote. It was not an owl. It was, and it wasn't a scream, but it's like a scream. Like you would have had to have screamed that call. Like,
yeah.
Just.
For that projection, for that volume at that distance, it just doesn't.
Whatever. I mean, just the size, the sheer lung capacity that whatever did that noise had to have is just insane. Like, this wasn't a mechanical thing. And it's like, okay, well, what if you heard a weird, like, contamination? Like, somebody was making a call to something. Or somebody, like, you heard a car horn that sounded weird and distorted. Why would you hear it being responded to back and forth? And it's like, even if there was an echo, they were coming from different directions.
Mm-hmm.
That wasn't an echo. It was like two different things, maybe even three. So I don't know. But like I said, I've never heard anything like that in the woods. Clayton grew up the same place I did. He didn't hear anything like it.
Yeah, I could not put my finger on what it was if I had to.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm talking about foothills, and you're even up more in the hills of Appalachia. And I've never heard something like that. So at some point, you have to step back and say, are we putting, like, running away with, like, fancy That's not even a word. That's not even saying. I am drunk. I'm drinking a lot of gin.
You probably are drunk, shit.
I am. Um, it's not like we're. I don't know. I
Carried
know.
away.
Yeah, getting carried away. I know that. I don't know. I've been in the woods all the time, and I'm always looking for shit. I've seen tree breaks, and tree bends, and I've never once thought this is Sasquatch. And I know that I've gone out before and thought, I hope I see a Bigfoot. Um, I've looked up at ridges and hoped to see a figure walk by. I've, but going to a place that you know is a hot spot and it giving you things that make you question one after the other, after the other, after the other. And you're like, at some point, is this just nature playing a joke or is something doing this?
Right. It's too many things to disregard. It's too many layers. It's too many dimensions.
Yeah. And then, for me, I was like, nobody told us they heard them. What if, and then so we get back and I send that to the museum owner, Steve. And I said, hey, this is kind of what we caught. It looks lighter on the iPhone because of the low light quality. That iPhones are really good for capturing light and low light. Almost too good because you don't even know it's dusk.
Yeah.
I said, but this is right at like around 5 o'clock and it's getting dark. And this is what we heard. And I expected him to be like, yeah, it might be something. But again, I don't know. He's got shit to back it up. I mean, he's the fucking, what is his title in that town?
The county commissioner?
He's
No.
like he's something.
Business
tour man.
Yes.
He's not
the
that.
mayor.
He's the mayor. He might as well be. I think he's the commissioner or something. Anyway, like, I don't think he's making this shit up. Like, his YouTube routinely, he talks to random people and he would have to have the whole town in on it, which I guess you could.
You could.
But we went out there and I mean, he didn't like, well, let me go with you. Or he wasn't like, he didn't know we were coming until the day of.
Yeah.
And I don't think he checked his voicemail. I left him a voicemail the day before. And I was like, yeah, I left you a message about us coming up. And his face was like, huh?
Yeah.
So again, I don't think there's so like this is where I sit with it. If there's hoaxers out there and they're fucking around with us, why would there not be better evidence?
Right.
Why would there not be like almost too good to be true prints? Why would there not be like fur stuck somewhere?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm saying like we didn't by any means look at the whole park, but we looked at one of the hottest spots in that park out of 3 that he marked for us. He didn't know where we were going. We never saw him again that night. He didn't come out. He's like, it's cold. I don't know if I'm going out there tonight. Y'all tell me what you found tomorrow. But we never, like, I don't think anybody, especially at night when we got lost back in there, I don't think anybody was out there fucking with us because we didn't hear enough stuff for somebody to be fucking with us.
Well, it was pitch black and it was 36 degrees outside. You got to be real crazy or real dedicated at that point.
Right. And I understand if there's like 3 or 4 groups out there and somebody's like, but then you're also talking about people that are out there that are experienced and that could probably smell a hoax from a mile away. I mean, I don't know. It's so easy to say these things are hoaxes and it's so easy to say, well, it's probably this or that. But at the end of the day, you're also talking about people, whether you believe in Bigfoot or not, that go out enough, that experience this stuff enough, where he showed us a barefoot print. He didn't barefoot. He showed us a double bear print where they accidentally step in. And some people cast those and think they might be Bigfoot prints. He could have said, isn't this looking weird? He knows what it is. And he did it because he was like, this is a bear. It's a really cool track. So, I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm like Mulder and I want to believe everybody too much. But I'm also very skeptical. And I'm like, there's a lack of evidence and suspicious things to make it a hoax. I don't think people went out to the middle of the woods off the trail where we were to leave these weird clues. And I don't think anybody could have faked those fucking yells.
No. Well, nature follows patterns, and you might not always notice the pattern, but you know when the pattern is broken.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's a perfectly put. You don't notice that the woods have constant noise until it's quiet.
Yeah.
And you don't notice trees have a pattern until it's broken. Until you see one that's like twisted around itself and still growing and pointing at like a 45-degree angle, and it's like gently bent and like coerced that way. And somebody said, I think it was Heather, who was like, well, do you know that like indigenous people used to mark like water and significant things by like manipulating the way the trees were growing? And I'm like, when you're so in tune with the land and nature and stuff, like a Sasquatch or, you know, entity or whatever it is would be, you would do that because you're not putting up man-made signs and you're not doing stuff like that. Just a lot, there's a lot of weird stuff out there that I can't explain. And even if you said 90% of it was natural causes, then those 10% that you can't explain are worth exploring more. Even if everything out there was just coincidental and those howls weren't. Fuck. Like 100 like you could find 100 prints. They could all be fake. But if one isn't, then that's it.
When you go on an investigation like that, the very worst you're gonna do is have a nice day in the woods.
That's what I said. If we find nothing, we have a nice night hike.
Yes.
Night canoe.
Night canoe.
But I will say this. I'm not saying that there's 100% of Bigfoot out there, but I will say it's suspicious to me for what we found.
Cannot rule out.
Cannot rule out.
Correlate clinically.
Right. And so I want to go back and see what happens. I want to camp. It doesn't even have to be warmer. Maybe we'll take a camper to the RV.
Yeah.
Quarantine style.
We'll get the old van.
So, I mean, that's all I've got. I think our set of circumstances that led us to that point, our experiences that night, like, it's something, it's weird to process. But, like, driving back, it's like, what did we hear?
Yeah.
And what if we heard a Bigfoot? Like, it certainly would make sense. And, oh, the one thing I wanted to touch on, we're in an hour and 20. Goddamn. The next day, or the day after I started talking to people, sending them stuff like I did with the print. And again, it's that imposter syndrome. And also, we're new for, like, evaluating and hunting for Bigfoot. It's like, I hope one crosses my path. But, you know, this is the first time we went to a location. For me, that's a hotbed, hotspot. I think for all of us there. And, you know, I'm sending stuff and I'm like, we're overreacting. And this person is going to be like, that's cool. I'm glad you guys are out there, but that's definitely a barred owl, or that's definitely a coyote. And I'm like, well, I could beg to differ because I know what I heard. But okay. And I expected, like, not ridicule, but I expected, like, it's inconclusive. It's this. And, you know, you do get some of that. And it's not like I'm expecting that. I'm not expecting confirmation, but I do want, because, like, if I'm hearing something that I've not thought of, there's not elk out here. I know they make crazy sounds.
Yeah.
If you have heard something in the woods that matches that and you know what it is, I want to know so I can rule it out. And if I hear it again, I'm like, well, that's a three-toed pelican, like something
Ground
fucking newt. Yes. Yeah, maybe newts make those noises. And like I did with the track, if you can tell me what this is, I mean, the only other suggestion was it was a human barefoot, however, or somebody set something in the mud. And it's like, okay, but you have to look at your circumstances. There's plenty of spots to sit something down. Why would you sit it in the mud with all these other, you know what I mean?
What are you carrying that has toes?
Right. But so, I mean, I don't know. So if anybody knows, we sent the picture to, like, a couple Bigfoot people. I sent it to the Bigfoot, like, collectors club, and they're like, well, we can't know for sure because of this, this, and this, which I understand. It's just a picture. And honestly, we didn't expect that much. But, I mean, I didn't expect to hear these noises, and I didn't expect them to come up on the phone. And I didn't expect for people that I sent it to actually say, wow, that sounds very strange. I expected people to say, I don't know. I'm surprised because, like,
you were ready for a little rejection.
Yeah, per usual.
Right.
But, like, I don't know. To me, it's one of those things that, yes, in the moment, in the woods, where it's silent, and we're out there looking for Bigfoot, and we hear this noise, we're going to think Bigfoot. But then to, like, listen back and look back at that track and listen back and look, it's like, it starts to get less and less, like, it starts to get more and more like questionable. Like, what did we get? What did we find? I don't know.
A mystery.
A mystery. So fuck. That's the end of this episode. What do you guys think we found? Go listen to those videos. You're gonna need headphones because it's very far off.
Yeah.
And it's an iPhone microphone, so it's not the best. We didn't go out there with like, maybe one day we can get one of those, what do you call them? Like where
those little listening deals.
It's like the microphone, but they've got the, fuck.
The dish.
I'm also drunk.
Right.
But yeah, maybe we can get one of those where you can point at and hear like, pick up sounds better.
And we can spy on the neighbors.
No, we don't need those. They're very loud. They're loud enough. We can hear them. But that's the end of the episode. We'll see you in 2021. Actually, we'll see you 5 and Up patrons on Friday at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for the live. Go to Patreon. There will be a link to the live YouTube. Bear with us because if it doesn't work right away, it's because we've never tried it.
And we're not going to do a practice run.
Well, we can't because then like people will think like this is it. I've already had somebody say like, sorry, I missed your live stream, cursed live stream. And I was like, no, that's this Sunday. But you know, put these on your schedules. They're fun. The gifts that are coming are 5 and Up, and all you have to do is be a 5 and Up member by the end of December, and we'll choose your address by mistake and send you something. Whoops. But yeah, that's that, and we'll see you then. Leave us a 5-star review because anything less, and there have been less, is insulting, really. I know we were spammed for the 1 stars because I saw the person that did it, and they don't know how iTunes work, so they left their 5-star review up. That was like, this is amazing, I love it, but they changed it to 1 star, so we know who you were.
Bless.
And we know why you did it, and we also know you're a piece of shit. But at the same time, spammed us. But then somebody gave us a 3-star, and I'm like, 3 stars make me wonder.
That's passive aggressive.
Well, 3 stars are like, okay, I understand 5, I understand 4, where it's like, God, you guys are onto something here, but you're not quite there. If you'd found Bigfoot, I'd have given you 5, but you didn't, so I gave you 4. You gave me Bigfoot blue balls. And if you hate us,
gotta find your own foot.
I understand a 1 and a 2-star where it's like, this is trash, but is it the worst trash? No, 2 stars.
Yeah.
Or, I don't like the sound of your voice, and I don't fucking Bigfoot like stole my lady.
That girl's accent gets on my nerves.
Yeah. 1 star. But 3 stars, like, are you that split? Love us or hate us. Don't sit in the middle. And nobody wrote, whoever gave us 3 stars did not write like a reason. Like, give us a good reason, like, Bigfoot killed my cousin, so I hate Bigfoot, but I also like ghosts, so 3 stars. But give us a good thing to put on like merch, I guess is what I'm saying, is
right.
Like, give us a good review, like, I don't know, something worth putting on a t-shirt, and let your disdain for us be our source of income. No, we do have day jobs. We have to keep those. But speaking of merch,
do we?
Maybe.
I'm done here.
Speaking of merch, I'd like to, hopefully sometime early next year. Don't have any promises. I'm still playing around with stuff. Still waiting to get back like things we can use. We're gonna do. We're gonna try to have a merch store going up. I guess we'll work with Cursed again. Share space with them. But check out our Patreon. Leave the review. It really fucking helps. You don't have to just do it on Apple, but I know a lot of Podbean podcast catchers don't give you places to review. And I'm drunk. This is like old Hex-Files. I don't feel like I would do. That's why you gave me 3 stars.
Right.
Is because I've not been drunk enough. Have you?
I have not been drunk enough in a long time.
I'm sorry. And if you're here for reading the articles, like we will sometimes, we do on Patreon at times, but
we are the articles.
We are the articles. You know what? We didn't think we'd be getting evidence, but here we are. So blame fucking Bigfoot and the aliens,
sir and or madam.
All right. Well, this is happy Yule. This is an extra long episode. Happy holidays. Whatever you celebrate. Let it not be your last. And we'll be back next year with more fuckery.
Yeah,
Shenanigans. And maybe we'll find Bigfoot this time. And we're going to talk to you about a haunted hotel. Who knows what we're going to find there.
Maybe a cookie.
Right. Just a cookie.
I don't know.
We'll maybe go to Burke County. We don't know. And we're not doing seasons, but if we were, this is like the end of season 1.
Oh, yay.
I don't think we got picked up for a second one.
Wow, that's fun.
So this was it. Unless you give us love and reviews and your ghosts. So until next time, what's our new catchphrase? By way of Josie, she helped us out. She'll be on Cursed. Check that out. We talk about Satan. The truth is we out here.
Yeah, that's the truth.
That's gonna be on shirts too.
I can't wait.
Yeah, the truth is we out here. Are we too old to say that? No, we're hip.
Yes, I'm very cool.
Cowabunga.
Yeah, radical.
Radical. Okay, goodbye.
Goodbye. Be safe.
Wait, what?
Be safe.
From what?
Don't die of the virus.
Catch us on the Yule Spectacular live on Cursed Sunday 12/20 at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Okay, bye. Hex-Files is written and produced in front of a live studio. One cat who's been fucking with everything this whole time. That's Floki, our producer.
Ex-producer, she got fired.
We'll have a new producer next year. She doesn't care.